The following tips should help you become better time managers. We strongly suggest that you write these down. At the end of this presentation, you'll need to have this list of tips for another activity. Tip number 1. Don't let the due date be your due date. What do we mean by that? In other words, start working on your schoolwork before it's due. This way you'll be able to mitigate the last-minute emergencies that come up. Give yourself some time. Don't wait until Monday to start working on a paper that's due Monday night. What will you do if you have questions that need to be answered in order for you to write your paper? Since instructors have 48 hours to respond to emails, there's a good chance that if you shoot your instructor an email on Monday or post to the Ask Your Instructor area, your question may not be answered by the time the paper is due. So go ahead and start early. Tip number 2. Find a good place to study. This is very important. Riding on a noisy, crowded bus and using your smartphone to write your discussion responses may be distracting and virtually impossible to concentrate. Much more relaxing would be finding a library or a favorite of mine, using my kitchen table after dinner to spread things out, have room for my laptop, textbooks, notebooks, etc. You might even want to go somewhere else to study, as I just mentioned. I found that if I take the time to travel even short distances and dedicate the time, I have very productive study sessions at a library or at a coffee shop. Those times are very productive. Just call ahead of time and make sure that they have free Wi-Fi. Tip number 3. Set a time when you won't be distracted and then stick with it. Maybe you work best in the mornings. Or maybe not. Maybe you work best at nighttime, when it's just you and the owls and the quiet solitude while everyone else is sleeping. This is what works best for me. Whatever works for you, use that to your advantage. Tip number 4. Be flexible. If something comes up during your planned study time, just reschedule your study time for later. Ever notice that the last-minute items seem to always come up when we least want them to? If you're well organized, it's far easier to swap your internal time slots to accommodate that last-minute item. If you learn how to handle things in stride and remain calm when plans don't turn out like you planned, you're more likely to be successful when tasks need to be switched around. Be like these rubber bands. Stretch yourself, hold things together, and be willing to change your shape slightly in order to get the job done. Tip number 5. It's all about prioritizing. Here's a page from my own actual playbook. I keep a composition book on my office desk that's blank when I start out, and then each day I write down the tasks I need to get done that day. For the more important must-do items, I put a red star next to them, as you can see on the left-hand side in the margin. I could also label these 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 so that each to-do would have its own priority ranking. But I don't dig that deeply into these. I just need to know the tasks that I have to get done that day, and those tasks that will be nice to get done, but don't necessarily need to be done that day. Then as I complete each task, I'll put a check mark in the square boxes that I've drawn next to each to-do item, just to show myself visually that I've taken care of them. Tip number 6. Get buy-in from your friends, family, and colleagues. This might seem like a no-brainer. Many of you may have already done this, or may already have this, and if so, that's awesome. We really need that kind of support when we're juggling so many tasks. And not only this, but because we are taking classes, our time with our family and friends, etc., may very well be impacted. So they need to know what we're doing so that they can support us and understand the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. Tip number 7, use technology. The best technology tool I use to manage my time are appointments in Outlook. These reminders make sure I never miss a meeting or appointment. Well, hardly any. These reminders can also be used to set up a schoolwork schedule throughout the week. So if you're planning to spend Sunday morning, let's say from 7 to 9 a.m., responding to discussion questions, make an appointment for that. This way, you'll also hold yourself more accountable. You can also use Google Calendar and access it through your PC or handheld device. Here's a screenshot of my calendar app that's on my smartphone that's synchronized with Google Calendar. Wherever I go, my smartphone's always there, and so are my appointments and to-dos as well, ready to give me alerts whenever I have to get these done. What about low technology? You've already seen my blank notebook that I fill in with my daily agenda. But what about sticky notes? To be honest, I've got these all over my desk. They serve to remind me of passwords, phone numbers, things to do, etc. Tip number 8, multitask. By multitask, I don't mean that you should do your discussion work while you're spending family night with the kids around watching a Disney movie, or write assignments while you're driving. Some things just don't go well together. What we are talking about here is to mix an active task with a passive one. What do you do as you're standing in line at the post office or when you're waiting for an appointment at the doctor's office? Did you know that with your smartphone you can quickly see what's going on in your class via Ashford's mobile application or mobile app? While it might seem a little unwieldy to make an actual post with your phone, at least it is for me, the fact that you're actively viewing your classroom helps to keep you engaged. Speaking of doctor's offices, one of the first things I do when I know I have to bring a friend to the hospital or have my own appointment or run my kid in for a checkup is to find out if they have Wi-Fi. If they do, you can bet that my laptop's going to be accompanying me during the visit. Why wait there with nothing to do when you can pull out your laptop and be productive and get things done? Or how about while you're cooking dinner? You'll be surprised at how quickly time goes by when you're working on schoolwork and a meatloaf's in the oven, or you have some ribs on the barbie. Tip number 9. Schedule time for interruptions. You know how it is. You're buried deep in a task, you're being super productive, and then all of a sudden an email hits your inbox, and it's from your boss, and it's got an urgency flag on it. So you've got no choice but to read and respond, which may take anywhere from 2 minutes to an hour or more, depending on the request. That happens at work, and it happens at home too. How many times have you started writing a paper and you hear, "Mom, Jimmy's picking on me again," or you can't remember a password to a website you need to go to, or your computer locks up and you have to reboot? After a while, you start to feel like this. That's why it's important to give yourself that extra time for those just-in-case moments when your time schedule gets set back. If you think you can read a chapter in an hour, better to give yourself an hour and a half just to make sure. And finally, tip number 10. Buy yourself a watch. How can you stay on top of managing your time if you don't have a watch? Okay, everyone has a clock on their computers and on their smartphones and in their cars. I know that, I get that. But with our busy lives, we need to get the right time right now. If it takes 10 seconds to dig out your smartphone from your purse or pants, read the time, and then put your phone back instead of just 1 second to look at your wristwatch as this gentleman is doing, then that's 9 seconds wasted. That doesn't seem like a lot, right? But if you look at your watch, let's say 7 times a day, Instead of digging out your phone, that's over a minute that's wasted each day. If you do that every day, that's 365 minutes a year, or over 6 hours. It really does add up. And that's what time management is all about, looking for ways to be more productive in the same amount of time or less. Now it's your turn. We've presented 10 tips for how to improve your time management skills. From the list that you made, read each of those tips that you wrote down. Do that right now, and I'll give you some time. Okay, now that you've read those tips, choose 2 of those items that are the most doable and suitable for your own individual situation. Okay, now that you have 2 of those items checked off or circled or otherwise marked, we'll do the last step in this process. I'm betting that you'll find you get your work done on time with higher quality, and you're much more relaxed and confident because you know you're on track and you've got a plan to stay on track. Best of luck.